Each day in 2023, I uploaded a different video in the series I called Block of the Day. Each video showed how to cut and piece that day's block. Links to download instructions for almost all the blocks are included in each video description. Every 3 months, I published a book that included all the blocks from the previous 3 months. These videos have been viewed thousands of times, and many of the books are now in your hands. Thank you for all that. Free instructions and the books are still available. For all my subscribers, I spent all of 2024 working on the QUILTNOTES.com website with the goal to create tools to find the fabric yardage you need to make actual quilts from the Block of the Day blocks or from any patchwork block you see or design. Use these tools to answer the question of, how much fabric do I need? In the coming videos, I'll choose a random block of the day and demonstrate how to use the information in the instructions to find fabric requirements for different units and patches. I encourage you to download the fabric charts I describe to you later so you can follow along filling out the information. After you've done a few blocks with various units, you'll be able to find fabric yardage on your own. You'll never need to ask someone else, how much fabric do I need? On your screen, look below the title of this video and find the light gray box. In the lower right of the box, click on the word More to find all the links you need. Because new quilters are discovering this channel and QUILTNOTES.com all the time, this introduction will be at the beginning of each video. But next time, you can fast forward to the good part, starting about 2.5 minute mark. Now let's get started. This is the instruction sheet for Block of the Day 2023 0402 Pinwheel Star 12 inches. The 0402 means that this was released on April 2nd, and the 12 inches means it's a 12-inch finished block. Now, if you want to make a different block, I'll wait till the end and I'll go over how to find a different size block, but I don't want to confuse things right now, so we'll do that later. This is the block, just a picture of the block, and down here is a diagram with A, B, C. The patches are shown where they are and the fabrics they have. This is a quilt sample of how they would look put together in the quilt. On the right hand side we have cutting instructions. Here is the cutting diagram for patch A, which is a 2-inch finished square, and it says to cut it at 2.5 inches. But when we do this, we don't have to worry about these cutting instructions because as we go through this process, we're going to have cutting instructions for the entire quilt. So we see for patch A, which is a square, we need 4 squares of the background and 4 squares of this green fabric. And if we look over here, here is the background fabric and here is the green fabric. And we see that these are in all 4 of the corners. So that coincides with the 4 patches of each of those. The next is patch B, which is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. And we have 8 patches of the background, 4 patches of this pink floral, and 4 patches of this peach color, 8 patches of this blue. The easier thing to do is look at your step 1 piecing instructions for your half square triangles. You'll see this is the background fabric and the blue fabric, and it says to make 8. So if you look up here, the background fabric says 8 patches, and the blue fabric says 8 patches. And this half square triangle, the peach color and the green, light green floral, says you need to make 4. So if you look up here, here's the peach that says 4 patches, and here is the light green floral that says you need 4 patches. And these are half square triangles. Now what I mean by patches in this case, this is a half square triangle unit. It has a half square triangle patch on this side and a half square triangle patch on that side. So this part here is a background half square triangle patch, and this is a blue half square triangle patch. So that's what I mean when I say patches. If I'm talking about this whole thing, this is a half square triangle unit. Our third patch is a 4-inch finished quarter square triangle, same as the half square triangle, only this is cut in half twice on the diagonal. So if you cut it like this and like this, you'll have 4 patches. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why it's called a quarter square triangle. And again, this is the quarter square triangle unit. You see there are 4 of these quarter square triangle patches sewn together. So if we look up here, we see we need 4 patches of the background, 4 of this darker background, and then 8 of this blue floral. So if you look here, here is your quarter square triangle unit, and all of these are on the side of this block. And then on step 3, we have this corner unit, and I call them corners because they're here in the corner. And it has 2 of the half square triangle units and 2 of the squares. So that's a little clue there of how things are put together. Next, we're going to QUILTNOTES.com. 2 things you need to know in order to figure out the yardage for your blocks is the size of the block, which we already know is 12 inches in this case, and you need to know how many blocks are in your project. And if you don't know, you can go to calculators on the calculators tab, and there are 2 different calculators. This one is for the straight set quilt, and this is for the on-point set quilt. And there'll be a link below the video that shows you how to use these. So for our purposes, we're going to use 20 blocks in this example. Next, I want you to go to the Charts tab, and we have 2 fabric charts here, PDF version and Excel version. In each of these versions, there's a chart for rotary cutting and there's a chart for AccuQuilt cutting. They're all together. So just download the ones you prefer and use those. This is the Excel version that we're going to use, and you'll see down here there's a fabric chart for rotary cutting and a fabric chart for AccuQuilt cutting. They're really close to the same, but there's a small little difference, and I'll go over both of these for you. And I'm going to use the rotary cutting version right now. Up at the top it says Pinwheel Star, that's the name of the block. The number of blocks is 20. The grid size we don't really care about right now unless we want to change the size of our block, and that will be at the end of this portion. The block size is 12 inches, and the grid unit size, we don't need to know that right now. That will be if you want to change the block. If you're working off of this instruction sheet here for block of the day, you just need to know the number of blocks and the size of the block. We're going to start with patch A, which is a 2-inch finished square. In here, we put the unit size, which is this square is our unit in this case, and it's 2-inch finished, and we're going to call it patch A square. Or you can call it whatever you want. Next, we need to know how many of these patch A squares are in the block. But we're going to separate them out by fabric. So we need 4 patches of the background and 4 patches of this medium green. So in here, I'm going to put background and medium green. So we'll need 4 of each of those. So I'll put 4 here. Now we need to fill out this column that's called total number of units in the quilt. We have 4 of these squares per block times 20 blocks. So 20 times 4 is 80. We're going to put 80 here. For AccuQuilt, we're going to fill it out the same exact way. We have the unit size is 2 inches. It's patch A square. and we have 4 in each block. We have 20 blocks. So we have 20 times 4 is 80. So up until this point, it's exactly the same. So let's go back to our rotary cutting. And next we're going to look up a square and figure out the yardage for this patch A square. On Quilt Notes, you'll go to the Blocks tab, click on that, and you see we have some common units down on this section. And we're looking at a square, so we're going to press on the square and rectangle patches. Let's look at our chart. This is the number of patches you need. So we see here we need 80 patches. We'll put 80 here. Finished width and finished length will be 2 inches. That's our unit size. 2 and 2. Then we press calculate. And here are our results. For the fabric, we'll need 18 inches or half a yard. So we'll go to the background fabric and put 18 inches and 0.5 yards. We're going to put the same amount over in the medium green section because it's the same shape, the same number of pieces, but just a different fabric, 0.5. So now we have what we need for the background fabric and the medium green fabric. So if you look here, it has the cutting instructions. So you'll cut 6 strips at 2.5 inches times the width of fabric. So we'll come here, 6 strips, 2.5 inches times the width of fabric, and we're going to subcut 80 patches, or we'll call it 80 squares. So there are your cutting instructions for these 2 fabrics, the background and the medium green for patch A. Now let's move over to the fabric chart for AccuQuilt. And I didn't put in the background here and the medium green. So we'll look at our AccuQuilt dies that we can use, and you have a choice of which of these dies to use to do your cutting. These are 2-inch finished squares, and these are 2 strip cutters, so you can choose which one you have or which one you prefer to use. I'm going to choose this 8-inch cube shape 2. We'll click on that, and this already tells us that it is a 2-inch finished square, and it just needs to know the number of squares we need. So here are 80 squares. We'll put 80 in this box and press calculate. This tells you fabric you need 17 inches or 0.47 yards. So we'll put 17 inches, 0.47 yards, and we'll just copy these over to the next column because we need the same thing for the green. And here you can write down, it says to cut 3 strips at 5.5 inches. 3 strips, 5.5 inches, 5.5 times the width of fabric. Then it wants you to fan fold 5.5-inch segments for a total of 80 squares. So we'll put 5.5-inch segments. Let me get this out of the way. For 80 squares. In this column, you'll write your cube or your die number. And in this case, we chose 55709. So we'll put that in there, 55709. So that's how you do it for AccuQuilt. Now I'm back on my rotary cutting side, and we're working on patch B, which is a 2-inch finished half square triangle. And you'll notice that we have 4 different fabrics for our patch B. 2 of them, the background and the blue, we need 8 patches, and 2 of them, the coral and the green floral, will need 4 patches each. So I've written down the extra fabric. We already have the background fabric. Here's the green floral, the coral, and the blue. I've written those down. Since we have different numbers, some are 8 and some are 4, we're going to put them in 2 lines. So we'll put our 2-inch finished half square triangle, patch B, half square triangle, and we'll use the one with the 8 patches. So we have 8 patches in one block. We'll put 8 here. And that will be for the background fabric and for the blue fabric. So we'll do those later. And 8 times 20 is 160. So we need 160 of both of those. And then for the second set of fabrics, it's 2-inch finished, patch B, half square triangle. And for these, we need 4 patches for the coral and the green floral. I'm getting my fabrics messed up, I'm sorry. So we'll have 4 of each of those. And 20 blocks times 4 per block is 80. Now, we're going to go back to Quilt Notes, and we're still on our common units under block, and we're going to click on half square triangle. Let me get this out of the way. So for this one, we'll need 160 2-inch finished. So we'll put 160 2-inch finished, and this one asks you how you want to cut them. So you'll have to decide how you want to cut. If you want to cut 8 at a time, if you have a bunch to cut 4 at a time, or if you want to use triangle papers. Whichever you choose, you'll have enough fabric. You just need to, sometimes it gives you just different cutting instructions. So let's use patches only, and then we'll calculate. So here are our results. And this is the first one, the 160. We'll need 18 inches or 0.5 yards. And remember, we had that for the background. So 18 inches, 0.5 yards. And then that was also for the blue fabric. So let's put that over here. 18 inches, 0.5 yards. Okay. Now here are the cutting instructions. Cut 6 strips, and you don't have to write these down if you know what you're going to do to cut them. So you'll cut 6 strips at 2 7/8, is 2.875 times the width of fabric, and you're going to subcut 80 squares, and then you're going to cut in half once diagonally. There's not really enough room to type it all in. First you'll cut your strips, then you'll cut your strips into squares, then each square you'll cut in half, and you'll have 160 half square triangle patches. Now let's go back to our half square triangle. This time we're going to put in, the number needed is 80. So we'll put 80, and the finished size is 2 inches. And the piecing method, we'll just choose patches only and calculate. So here we need half as much. So it's 9 inches or 0.25 yards. And our fabrics are this coral. So we'll put 9 inches and 0.25 yards for the coral and for the green floral. Now I'm back to my AccuQuilt section of the chart, and I've filled it out exactly the same way. We'll go to our half square triangle calculator and put in 160 patches needed, and our finished size is 2 inches. And our calculate method, we're going to choose AccuQuilt. The results give you 3 different dyes to choose from. It also gives you the fabric here. If you want exactly the right cutting instructions, click on the dye you choose. So in this case, let's choose dye 55712 here, and we'll put it here too. And we'll choose this dye, click on it, and we'll put in the number of half square triangles we need, which in this case is 160, and calculate. So you'll need 23 inches, and for these we're doing the background, so we'll do 23 inches and our 0.64 yards. And we also need the same thing for the blue fabric. So let's move over to the blue, and we'll put 23 inches or 0.64 yards. And let's just move this out so we can make sure we have everything. So on this, for the half square triangle patch B, the 160, we need 23 inches, 0.64 yards under the blue and the background. And we also have our cutting instructions we can transfer over as well. So you cut 6 strips at 3.75 inches. So let's put 3 strips. .75 inches times the width of fabric, and you're going to fan fold 3-inch segments. 3-inch segments. Let's take this for a total of, and then you'll cut a total of 160 patches. So that's for the patch B, for the background fabric and the blue fabric. Now we'll work on patch B for the other 2 fabrics, which is the coral and the green floral. So we need 80 at 2 inches finished. We calculate, we need 12 inches or 0.33 yards. So for the coral here, for the background we have 12 inches, 0.33 yard, and for the coral we have 12 inches or 0.33 yards. And we'll write our cutting instructions. We have cut 3 strips at 3.75 times the width of fabric. And we're going to fan fold 3-inch segments for 80 patches. Now we have the patch B's done for the AccuQuilt and for rotary cutting. So we're going to go back to our rotary cutting side and do our very last, our quarter square triangle patches. Our last patch is the quarter square triangle. It's 4-inch finished. We have 4 patches of the background, 4 patches of the medium background, and 8 patches of this large blue floral. And here is the quarter square triangle down below, and we'll have 4 of them for each block. So since we have the same exact, we have 3 different fabrics and different numbers of the fabrics, we'll have to have 2 lines for this. So I know it's probably not making any sense right now, but let's just go ahead and fill this out. So this is a 4-inch finished quarter square triangle, and we'll call this QST, and we'll put it down here too because it'll be the same, 4-inch finished quarter square triangle. Let's do the background first. So the background we need 4 patches, and the medium background we'll need 4 patches as well. So we're going to have to add the medium background fabric here. And then we'll add the large blue floral here. just because we'll need it in just a minute. Okay, let me move this down. So we have 4 in each block, and let's put that here. We have 4 in each block and 20 blocks, that's 80 patches. And for the large blue floral, we have 2 in each unit, so that means we have 8 in each block, so that matches up with the 8 patches we need here. So we'll put 8 here, and 8 times 20 is 160. Oops. So now let's open up our Quilt Notes blocks again, and we'll click on quarter square triangle. Let's move this over. So for this first one, we need 80 patches. So we'll put 80 here, and we're going to select patches. It asks for patches or units. And remember, each one of these is a patch, but all of them sewn together is a unit. So we're doing patches right now. And the finished size is 4 inches. And press the calculate button. So it tells you need 17 inches or 0.47 yards. And this was for the background and the light and the medium background. So let's put that over here. Medium background, 17 inches, 0.47 yards. And then let's scroll over to the regular background. We have 17 inches and 0.47 yards. Then let's put the cutting instructions. We'll cut 3 strips at 5 1/4 inches times the width of fabric. 3, so 5 1/4, 5.25 times the width of fabric. And we're going to subcut 20 squares. And then cut twice diagonally for 80 patches. So I just abbreviated a lot here. You'll follow the instructions here. Cut each square in half twice diagonally for 80 quarter square triangle patches. If you don't want to write all this down, you can simply right click on here and press print, and you can print out this page. You can do that for all of them. Now we have the medium background and the regular background filled out. Okay. So now let's go to the second one where we need 8 patches and 160 patches total. So we'll put 160, and we want patches, so we're choosing patches, and the finished size is 4 inches. And press calculate. It's going to be the same AccuQuilt dies here, and we'll do those next. So here we're going to cut, we need 33 inches or 0.92 yards. For this we need the blue floral. So let's move down here and let's put 33 inches and 0.92 yards. Okay, that's under the blue floral. And you see it's twice as much as we needed for the other ones. Let's cut 6 strips at 5.25 inches times the width of fabric. We'll subcut 40 squares. Let me move this up. Subcut 40 squares, twice diagonal for 160 patches. So now these are all done for the rotary cutting. I'm just going to make this bigger so we can see the whole thing. What we're going to do next is add up all the totals in these columns. So we'll have a total for background fabric, medium green fabric, all the other fabrics. So I'll just go down here. All right, so for the background fabric, we'll need a total of 53 inches or about 1.5 yards. For the medium green fabric, we need 18 inches or 1/2 yard. The green floral, we need about 9 inches or 1/4 of a yard. Same thing for the coral color. And for the blue fabric, we'll need 18 inches or 1/2 a yard. The medium background, we'll need 17 inches or about 1/2 a yard. And for the blue floral, we'll need 33 inches or about 1 yard. So that gives you all the yardage for this block for 20 blocks. Now let's go to the AccuQuilt chart and fill that out the same way. The AccuQuilt section, I filled out the 2 last sections for the quarter square triangles, and I left open the quarter square triangle calculator because we're just going to choose which die we want to use. And I'm going to choose this 55711 from the 8-inch cube. So let's put 55711 here and 55711 here. So we'll know which die we chose. And let's click on this one. We'll go directly to the calculator for the AccuQuilt 55711. And we simply put in the number of quarter square triangles we need. So in here, we need 80. So we'll put 80 and calculate. Now this one gives you fabric for all 4 of the sections. And as a reminder, here are the 4 sections. What we're doing is the amount for the background fabric. So we needed 80 patches. Well, we'll just look at fabric number 1. It's 18 inches or 1/2 a yard, and we're going to cut 80 patches. So we'll need 80 patches of the background and 80 patches of the medium background. So we'll move this over here. And that's what we just calculated. So we're going to put 18 inches or 0.5 yards for the background, and the same thing for the medium background. So let's write that here, 18 and 0.5. So that takes care of, in this picture, like the top and bottom ones. This would be the background and this would be the medium background. Next we'll need to find the fabric for these 2 floral patches. So that's going to be twice as much as we had here. And we'll add the 2 together. So instead of 18 inches, we'll have 36 inches for the blue floral. So here we'll put 36 inches or 1 yard. Let's write down our cutting instructions for both of these. So we'll cut 3 strips for the background fabrics, 3 strips at 5.75 inches times the width of fabric. You will fan fold 5 3/4 inch segments. So let's write that here. 5.75 inch segments. Let me abbreviate this. And we need 80 patches. Now for the last one with the blue floral fabric, we're going to double fabric 1 here. So we doubled the yardage from 18 inches to 1 yard. Now we'll double the number of strips. So we'll cut 6 strips at 5.75 inches times width of fabric. And we're going to fan fold the same size, 5.75 inches. We'll have 160 patches. So now you have the cutting instructions for your AccuQuilt. And then you would go through the same way. We'll total up each column for the fabrics. And here are the totals for our AccuQuilt dies in inches and yards for each of the fabrics. Now I want to show you, if you want to change the size of the block, what you need to do. This is the block diagram. And what we're going to do is find out how big is this 2-inch finished square. But first we need to find the grid. So we're going to isolate the square just because it's easy. It's the first one. And we're going to draw a frame around the square. And so here's the other square and this square. And then we have more squares over here. So what we're doing is we're starting to define our grid. And then we're just going to connect all these lines. So you see the grid is forming. And then we'll just go halfway down here. Whoops, sorry, I got sloppy there. And go down this way. And then let's go across. Okay, so now we have our grid, and it's based on the smallest patch, which in this case is the half square triangle or the square. And let's count all across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 grid spaces across and 6 grid spaces down. This tells me it's a 6 by 6 grid. We're going to go back to Quilt Notes under the Charts tab and look for this center chart, the select grid and block finished size. We're going to choose our grid, which is a 6 by 6 grid. Then it gives you some block sizes that are common block sizes, finished block sizes for a 6 by 6 grid. So let's just say we had a 12 inch, and let me show you what happens with the 12 inch. It gives you a grid unit size of 2. So for a 12 inch block, your grid unit size is 2. Now this block, if you look over here, this is a 2 inch finished square, and this is a 2 inch finished half square triangle. And the quarter square triangle is 4 inch finished because the quarter square triangle is right here, and it takes up 2 grids across and 2 grids down. So if this is 2 inches, then 2 plus 2 is 4. So that makes the quarter square triangle a 4 inch finished quarter square triangle. So let's take these off. Now we'll go back here, and let's say we want a 9 inch block. So we'll choose 9 inches. So now we have our grid unit size is 1.5 inches. So what you would do is substitute this 2 inches here for 1.5. And you would use that in all of your calculations. You would substitute this 2 here for 1.5. And then since the quarter square triangle is 2 grid spaces, so let's draw this again. So this would be 1.5 and this would be 1.5. So 1.5 times 2 is 3 inches. So we'll cross that out, and this would be a 3 inch finished quarter square triangle. And this is what you will put in here. Where we put the unit size was 4 inches for the quarter square triangle, you'll put a 3 inch here. And for the squares and the half square triangles, where we put 2 inches, you put a 1.5 inch. So up here, your blocks would still be 20 blocks, or maybe you would want more. But the grid size, you would put 6 by 6. And the block size would be 9 inches. And the grid unit size would be 1.5 inches. So that's really the only thing that changes is this grid unit size, which changes the unit size here. I hope this all makes sense to you. I promise I'll do a better job. I'm trying to get used to going from all these 3 different screens but keeping it large enough so you can see it. So I promise I'll do a better job as I learn how to do it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.